Well, good morning, everyone. We will call this meeting to order. Do we have any excused absences? I believe we may. Wait for Jono to get back up here.
We do. Troy Butler, John Bonfossen, and Christine Bershey have all let us know that they will not be here.
All right, thank you, Jono. Motion to approve the excused absences.
Move the motion.
Support.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any conflicts of interest? Seeing none, we'll move on. Any public comment on agenda items? Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of minutes from our March 27 meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is a report on our financial statements.
Good morning.
Good morning.
In your packet is financial statements as of the end of March 31. It's been pretty much routine business as usual. You can see on Statement C that we paid most of the winter tax increment reimbursements to the developers. I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has any.
Any questions, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on our agenda is action items. Number one, we have a resolution approving a First Amendment to the Brownfield plan for the Vandenberg Center redevelopment project at 111 Lion Street Northwest.
So moved.
Support.
All right.
Jess,
Good
thanks.
morning, everyone. All right, so the first project this morning is an amendment to an existing Brownfield plan for the Vandenberg Center project that was approved by this board and the City Commission back in 2020. The first phase of development resulted in almost 19,000 square feet of retail space, just over 101,000 square feet of commercial space, and 145 jobs were retained. 63 full-time and 30 part-time jobs were created as a result of the project, or as the first phase, and the investment was about $79.8 million. Reimbursement was approved for the project for Brownfield eligible activities in the amount of $3.4 million by this board back in October of 2023. So the request before you this morning is to amend the Brownfield plan to revise the scope of the second phase of the project to add new eligible activities. So the second phase of development will take place at 111 Lion, where currently the existing building contains about 95,000 square feet of commercial space. The developer is an entity affiliated with CWD Real Estate Investment, and they are proposing to redevelop the upper 7 floors of the existing building into 140 residential units. Total investment in the project is estimated at $31.7 million, with construction costs of $30.7 million. And of those construction costs, scopes of work are well defined for $23 million, which is associated with the housing development component of the project. The remaining construction costs are associated with future building amenities. The developer anticipates 45 new jobs will be created as a result, with average wages of $21.50 an hour, and those jobs are associated with leasing and future amenity spaces. Excuse me, the developer is working towards a goal of 15% of the $23 million in construction costs related to the housing component, or $3.45 million in participation from MBE, WBE, and MLBE subcontractors. And And they also have about $2.3 million in professional services costs, and they have the same goal of 15% participation, which is about $345,000 of those costs. The 140 residential units will be a mixture of 1 and 2 bedrooms and will largely be rented at market rate except for 28 units, which will be income restricted for households earning at or below 100% area median income, which is in compliance with the guidelines that you approved for the housing TIF program. This is 20% of the units as well. So the reimbursement request for brownfield eligible activities associated with this phase of development is $15.2 million and includes demolition, lead and asbestos abatement, infrastructure improvements, and housing development activities. The housing development activities specific to this project are reimbursement to fill a financing gap associated with the development of units that are income qualified households, which, as a reminder, is per MSHDA standards and state law, is 120% AMI or below. And then also reimbursement for potential rent loss. Both of these activities are associated with the 28 income restricted units. The potential rent loss for this project was calculated by taking the difference between market rate here, which is 120% AMI, and then the income restricted units, which is 100%. And the total annual rent loss is estimated at $230,580. In order to be in compliance with your policy or your interim guidelines, the income restricted units need to be income restricted for either 10 years or the period of reimbursement, which in this case is 25 years. So over the 25-year period, the rent loss is estimated at around $5.8 million. The amended plan will remain in place for the full 30-year period, and the last 5 years will go to the local Brownfield revolving fund, as with other projects. Also related, so in an effort to maximize the tax increment revenue capture available to be reimbursed to the developer on this project, staff and the developer will be asking the Downtown Development Authority to consider passing a resolution that would basically forego their capture on this property so that the developer will have more access to revenue to be reimbursed. This is something that wasn't previously allowed, but with the changes to Act 381, this is now something that they are allowed to do. So we expect that we'll be able to make that request at their May meeting. We're also anticipating that the developer will submit an application for a 15-year neighborhood enterprise zone tax exemption, and that will kind of follow the approval of the Brownfield plan through the City Commission process as well. Construction is expected to start in the fall of this year and then complete around the spring of 2026. And I think that's it. So I'm going to ask Sam Cummings from CWD and Jared Belka to come up and share some more about the project.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you want to talk, Gerald, or do you want me to go?
Sam, I'll let you.
Okay. It is with great enthusiasm that I am here about this project. It seems like an eternity ago. Everything is pre-COVID or post-COVID now, isn't it? When we did phase one, we like to refer things in leading use and following use. And our plan was always, the leading use of this redevelopment was to restore the walkability of Lyon and improve the ground floor, the transparency, which we've completed, and start to build a community where previously, I don't have to tell you, those of you who remember what it looked like in about six years ago. It was designed for a different era. So we accomplished that. Our goal was to restore some vitality to the site, and then we anticipated that we would attract a major corporate headquarters or a combination of office users to a renewed 111 Lyon Tower. I don't have to go into the dynamics of the office market across the country, but We are particularly excited about this transformation because it accomplishes a lot of goals. One of our goals was to reestablish a community around 111 Lyon within the community of downtown Grand Rapids. And one of my early heroes in not the prison part, but in urban revitalization was Ian Schrager, who, as you may know, was he was infamous for Studio 54, but after that, he began the boutique hotel movement in the middle 80s, and he took old buildings and, without changing their facades, restored the interiors. He worked with Philippe Stark and brightened interiors, brought new amenities to old structures, and essentially reframed the question of what they were. That is really our inspiration for 111 Lyon. And we've done some exploratory demolition on the 9th floor, and working with our architects, which integrated, who's represented here today, the interiors are fantastic. The windows, I'm reminded by our architects often that the ratio of glazing to non-permeable surface area of the walls is significantly greater than a lot of the other historic buildings we've done. So from an inside, the floor plates of this building lend themselves beautifully to a residential conversion. So we're extremely excited about it. You saw our basic program. We are working on. I think many of you have been inside the building. There's a lot of interior space in that building. There's about 15,000, kind of on the arcade, as we call it, between the retail and the parking deck. And our hope is to, as a result of the commercial activity we've already done, the 200 Monroe building, and other uses in Vandenberg Center, to add some additional amenity space in there. We are working on also some other activation for, call it the plinth, which is the raised level between Lyon and Ottawa, the details of which will be forthcoming. The location is incredible for residential. It really is main and main. This has been a very challenging project in the past, and I want to thank the City of Grand Rapids and DDA and Economic Development Department we've been working on this a long time. That we've gone through a number of different scenarios to try and reach a positive result, and I think this is one that everybody wins, which is exciting. Fifth Third is, to date, enthusiastically supportive of the project. We'll see what happens, how supportive they are once we get under construction. But right now, they're very enthusiastic, and as this kind of represents a natural evolution of, the culture of Grand Rapids began at Vandenberg Center. This is kind of emblematic of the Grand Rapids way when Dick Gillette at then Old Kent Bank kept Old Kent Bank downtown and built that building in 1967. So even though the use is changing, it certainly is a great evolution of that, and we're excited to bring a new vitality to it. The program has already been gone through, so I won't bore you with that again. But I'll the passage of PAs 90 to 93. I also want to congratulate the city and the state for the passage of those, because that really makes projects like this work. We've had this, I think, this conversation before with a few of you about the city that figures out how to effectively convert office space to residential will win. Because without saying, this not only creates new residential at Main and Main in our city, it also eliminates 100,000 square feet of office space, which helps to move that market too. So we're grateful to have this opportunity. We're excited to get started. The building is in the air, so it could be a pretty quick conversion. So we're grateful for your consideration and standing by.
I'll be brief. Sam's a tough act to follow. So just want to underscore, the importance of this program and incentive, and like to commend the staff here for being at the forefront of developing a policy. I do work in other communities. Everybody is kind of standing on the sidelines saying, yeah, we want to use the program, but we don't have a policy. So I kindly point them to your policy and say, this is one community that's established one. I think probably the only one at this point. So hats off to the team here for really jumping on that. And I can attest, and so can Terry, CWD's CFO, that this is probably version 30 of a scope of Sam and his team trying to make a project work for that site. So it's very exciting. I would go as far as saying Sam's giddy and excited to get going. So we appreciate your consideration today. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sam. Jared, any questions for our applicant?
A few months ago, Sam, you were here, and we were talking about the development of the policy for the residential portion of this new state legislation. And you told us a lot about the trials of a developer trying to make a office building transformative into housing. And a couple of things I remember you saying was, number one, the cost, because there isn't an air conditioning unit for each, livable unit, or, there was just a lot of infrastructure that goes into taking an office building and putting it into residential. And you were really, I took it as it's next to impossible. And this was before, obviously, all these incentives. But then you also said that it's difficult because you have existing customers in the space, and it's too expensive to move them out into another space you may have space in. So I'm really thrilled that you're taking this on, because I'm hoping it shows others that are in the same situation you are, where you have long-term tenants that are too expensive to move, and a situation that's obviously expensive to do. But if you can transform this and show other people it's possible, I think it's going to have a huge impact on downtown. So thank you.
Thank you. We're excited about that too. I mean, frankly, it does. I know there's a project that's next on the agenda that dwarfs what we're doing, but the fact that we are, reinvesting in our city, in downtown, I think it also sends a message too that this is private development. This is and we're excited about it. But it is a small portion of buildings that can be done. We're fortunate that we have 17,000 square foot floor plates that lay out really well with two cores that are in great shape. And, we've got to put all that infrastructure in, so we've got to do a lot of drilling but the floor plates are really well laid out. And we have contiguous vacant floors, which is one of the largest challenges a lot of times with office space is having contiguous floors that are vacant that don't have lease term. So we have that here. We're renaming the LLC Lemonade LLC. Yeah, so we're very excited about it.
Any other questions or comments?
I just also want to commend you, Sam, for your work in the core and the potential here to see more residential at this Main and Main intersection. I mean, we tend not to have many dwelling units kind of this side of Lion Street. I mean, certainly we have some over at Michigan that you did as well, but it'll be great to see more activation at this intersection along Ottawa. hopefully someday we'll see that as a two-way street. And then more people living and occupying this area near Calder Plaza. So I think it's going to be a great asset in this part of our city. So thank you.
Yeah, I just want to echo my colleague Sam, and thank you for bringing, this project to life, and jumping in, with this piece of housing that is much needed in our community. I just have a question for you. What are your intentions to hire minorities to help you with the development of this piece?
So we have, this is going to be a work in progress. It is really, today, it's a challenge to find trades in certain areas. So our goal of 15% was outlined in our plan. I can't promise that, but we will do our utmost to achieve it and we'll work with our general contractor or construction managers to make sure that we do our utmost to achieve that.
Well, that's a good goal.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can make it happen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
I've got a question, maybe more for Jessica. In terms of recommending approval of the resolution, does this need to be contingent on the DDA approval that happens next month, or how do we proceed with that?
I think that's implied within this approval, but, so I don't think you need to necessarily make that explicit, but that's a good thought and an important thing to know.
Yeah, and I can point out that the approval of the Brownfield plan, recommendation by the Brownfield Authority to the City Commission and approval by the City Commission does effectuate a large portion of the financial incentive, and so the approval of the neighborhood enterprise zone would also effectuate a large portion of the incentive, and whether or not the DDA elects to approve a resolution would not eliminate what you're doing today. It would not obviate the incentive that you're recommending today. It would add to it.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question.
Okay, then, we have support for a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Next action item on our agenda is resolution approving transformational brownfield plan for the Grant Action 2.0 redevelopment project. Do I have a motion?
Support.
Good morning.
Morning.
Really happy to be here today to talk about this project with you, and we have some members of the development team here today as well, and I'll invite Kara up in a minute, but we have Kara Wood from Grand Action, Rich McKeegan from the Convention Arena Authority, Scott Bean from Pioneer, which is a general contractor, member of the general contractor team, and then Tim Kelly as well. So this, what you're going to hear about is building on what we talked about last month. You got an overview of this project, and included in your packet was a lot more detail about the transformational brownfield plan and the application that's been submitted. So I'm going to go pretty high level here and pretty quickly given where we're at, and just remind you that today is an important day. We're recommending this brownfield plan to the City Commission, but it is one piece in a very complicated and multifaceted program here that involves not just the transformational brownfield, but obviously a real estate transaction with the city, lots of efforts by lots of partners, some of whom are represented here, but also Kent County and other interested stakeholders in this project. So very important today, but also just one piece of a larger effort here to transform a large section of property on the river and on the west side of downtown Grand Rapids. So as a high-level overview, a reminder of what we talked about last month. This is kind of a 4-phase project. We have an Acrisure Amphitheater on 201 Market, and we have the Grand Rapids Soccer Stadium on the west side on the DDA-owned parking lots. Adjacent to each of those public-private partnership projects, we have proposed residential developments that would lead to up to 735 new residential units. 475 of those adjacent to the Acrisure Amphitheater and 260 adjacent to the soccer stadium on property owned by the Downtown Development Authority. Slight revisions to the total estimated development costs here, $715 million overall between these 4 projects, and it also includes the development of a portion of the River Edges Trail along the river between US 131 and Welty Street. At total project completion, there would also be 1,300 parking spaces and a combination of parking ramps on both of the residential projects, as well as some surface parking. And then combined between all projects, 238 total full-time equivalent jobs, which is a combination, as you might imagine, of full-time and part-time jobs associated with all 4 projects here. So just a sort of visual overview here. Nothing's changed since last month. Just kind of representing the scale of the overall project, close to 20 acres. And you can see the vast majority of the actual land is associated with the amphitheater and soccer stadium, and then the residential and mixed-use developments adjacent to those. So a reminder of the Transformational Brownfield program. This is obviously an enhanced incentive. It goes above and beyond the traditional Brownfield program that you see every month here, where the Brownfield Authority can facilitate financing for demolition, environmental site assessment, remediation, site preparation, infrastructure improvements. Essentially, under Transformational Brownfield, all of the construction costs are eligible costs to be reimbursed. And so for this combined plan, that's over $550 million. Not all of that would be able to be reimbursed. Obviously, there's a limitation on the tax increment revenues that can be generated. And so the tax increment revenues are also expanded. Typically, we are recommending the capture of property taxes and reimbursement for eligible costs. Transformational Brownfield brings a lot more state incentives to the development, including a significant amount of income tax capture, state income tax capture. And then the ability for the developments to avoid sales and use tax on construction materials and capture of state sales tax from operations of the developments in the future. Project obviously has to meet a certain investment criteria. That's $100 million, so we have multiple times that here, obviously, and then has to be estimated to have a transformational impact, which I do not think there is a question about related to this project. So again, all of this information was in your packet, so I'm going to run through it real quickly. But we did break down the proposed incentives for each of the components of the project here. I think it's important to sort of help you and the community understand where this breaks down on a per project basis and the scope and scale of what we're hoping to accomplish here. And so starting with the amphitheater is $185 million development overall. You've heard lots about this 12,000-seat outdoor amphitheater, lots of opportunity associated with this project to elevate Grand Rapids' already good reputation in terms of the tourism and entertainment industry. We have great partners in the Convention and Arena Authority that operate very successful facilities in Grand Rapids, and this is going to add to that, obviously. This will, again, include the development of the River Trail and important connections to regional networks through and beyond Grand Rapids. Just for clarity, the parking that will be developed with the amphitheater is a surface parking lot, and then the ramp would be developed along with the residential that would be coming in the future. So the incentives for the amphitheater are really derived from state sources. This will be a publicly owned and operated facility, and so it will be exempt from property taxes. And so as it relates to your recommendation today, there are no incentives associated with the Acrisure Amphitheater. They come from state sources and require approval from the Michigan Strategic Fund. The residential component adjacent to the amphitheater, again, 475 unit potential here, estimated to be 21 stories, which is 15 stories on top of a 6-story parking ramp. The expected rents are shown there. This is a project that does require a developer at this point, and so the Transformational Brownfield program provides an opportunity for this recommendation that will lead to the opportunity for a developer to take advantage of the incentive for this project in the future. Obviously, a very expensive development here for multiple reasons. Every development's expensive right now. Everybody in this room could tell you that. This is also a development that's on land that used to be the river, and so it's not great, to be frank. And so the underground work necessary to build a high-rise development is very expensive and complicated downtown. And so this incentive is really necessary to motivate motivate interested parties to take a look at this development. Although we do obviously have a need for this housing and believe that this is a viable project with your recommendation today. The incentives associated with the residential, very, very significant, obviously. And so we're talking about a combination of the transformational brownfield incentives through state sources, the capture of local and state property taxes, and then a proposed neighborhood enterprise zone tax exemption as well. These are all incentives that would only be realized if a development were to occur. And so your recommendation today does not provide any incentive until a project happens. So these are, as always, performance-based incentives and require the investment that's described in the application. Moving on to the soccer stadium, again, very similar to what you saw last month, $172 million development overall, 17 soccer matches and additional opportunities for other events here, again, owned and operated by the Convention and Arena Authority. Significant amount of job opportunities here with this development, including the soccer operations, but the related facilities here, retail and hospitality, restaurant as well, downtown. So this is a 8.2 acre property on the west side. Similar to the amphitheater, what you see here is the incentives come from those state sources, and again, a publicly owned and operated and tax exempt property. And so again, the recommendation from you today is related to local property taxes, and there would be no local property taxes associated with this component of the project. Final component, the proposed Stadium District Tower, similar to the amphitheater residential. Developer must be identified to advance this project and come back to you with more details in the future. But what you see here is 260 residential units. There would also be 10,000 square feet of retail and 20,000 square feet of office as proposed. Good opportunities for employment here with all of those components, and then an integrated parking ramp as well with some surface parking remaining. So this would be to the north of the soccer stadium. And again, similar to the amphitheater residential, significant incentives available for a developer that would undertake this project as described and derived from both those state sources associated with the transformational brownfield and then the local and state property taxes and the property tax exemption through the neighborhood enterprise zone program as well. So just emphasize the point that where those two private developments are at is that they are conceptual at this point, and this incentive is really I wish I had the right word. It's a nudge. Obviously, it's a step that we can take today, that we're recommending that you take today, that will be a domino that can help the next domino fall, where developers can be identified and we can help facilitate the development of these very significant projects that would meet a lot of critical needs in the community. So this is just summarizing all projects combined. Obviously, a very significant number here, $318 million. But again, divided by multiple projects and all performance-based. And so these all will be realized only when the projects occur in sequence. I want to talk a little bit about the affordable housing component and strategy here. We touched on this briefly, and there's a lot of information here. Again, I'll preface this by saying we're recommending to you today that you take this action and approve an affordable housing agreement that will come back to you in the future with more detail. So what we're recommending is that there are multiple ways to achieve the outcomes that are important to the city and to the community, and that may look like affordable housing provided at the developments, or it may look like contributions to the Affordable Housing Fund that can be used to make investments in other places. And so what is described in the memo and on this slide in front of you is that those two options are recommended by staff, and we feel good that they're both going to achieve the outcomes that they're both going to achieve significant outcomes related to providing affordable or attainable housing, and also that they will change from what's presented here. These are numbers that represent the application as submitted, and as I've described, the residential developments will be advanced by a private developer, and we'll work with them to determine which approach is most beneficial to getting the project done and to providing affordable or attainable housing in the community, and you'll have an opportunity to see that again in the future. And then touching on the inclusion plan, these are complicated projects, obviously with very large, complex scopes. What we have today is an inclusion plan for the Acrisure Amphitheater. We will receive additional inclusion plans for the other developments as they advance through conceptual and design development. The amphitheater is not a project that is similar to any other project, and it does have these large scopes of work that are complex and can only be performed by very specialty trades. And so that does limit the opportunity associated with this project for actual contracts. It does not limit the opportunity for participation that would look different than a contract. And Pioneer and their partner Barton Mallow have submitted a plan that we feel is representative of the realistic opportunity for this project and describes other efforts that they'll undertake to bring partners along to this project and provide opportunity for education and participation that may or may not look like an actual signed contract. And so this is a community-driven project, and we have partners that are looking to achieve a lot of different outcomes, including those opportunities for women, minority, and micro-local subcontractors in this project. So wrapping up, kind of summarizing everything that I've talked about so far, here's the timelines for the project. We're going to see the Acrisure Amphitheater get kicked off here very quickly, and the other projects will follow according to the schedules here, but you'll see a lot more related to the private developments in the coming months as we work collaboratively to identify developers and see those come to more definition and come back to you with more details. and a summary at the bottom here of what is really the recommendation for you to consider today, which would be to approve the transformational brownfield plan, recommend that to the City Commission, and your portion of that would be related to the private developments and total $43 million of local property tax capture for those projects over a period of 30 years. With that, I probably didn't leave a lot for Kara to talk about, but I'll invite her up to talk about the overall project and timeline here and what we are likely to see in the coming months, and answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Jono, and good morning.
Good morning.
You did leave a few things that I want to cover, and I think it's important to know, and we talked about this last month, $130 million of private philanthropy is being contributed to these projects. This is highly unusual and what makes Grand Rapids unique and what makes us special. There's no financial return to these philanthropists, no return other than the fact that they want publicly owned and operated destination assets that are going to fuel our future. And so for 2 or so decades, just like the arena and the convention center, look at what they've done to our downtown and transformed our city and our region. I also want to make mention of the importance of the river here. So Whitewater is in progress, and these projects will complement that investment, but also add to it. So an additional $20 million of riverfront activity as part of these projects will occur, opening up new access to trails that don't currently exist. So a critical linkage in our river trail system is going to become possible as a result of these developments. And I think that's important to mention as the overall transformation of our downtown actually occurs. And again, thank you to all the staff that have been involved in the project. It has taken lots of hands and lots of conversations, lots of hours working with the state. And it is a city application to the state of Michigan for the transformational brownfield incentive. And so collectively as a team, we are partners in this all together. And I will also mention, in terms of schedule, Jono wanted me to mention some of the upcoming dates. We do hope to mobilize on the site in May, and Scotty Vane is here to attest to that. He's ready to go. In accordance with all of the plan details that Jono has explained, we are ready, and it's exciting. I think we're thankful to the city for all their work on their temporary relocation as they get a new site ready over on the other side of the river. But this is happening. And I think it's really exciting for our city and for our region. And thank you for your consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Jono and Kara. I just want to note that I think it's important to keep in mind that the investment in this project also bolsters existing operating businesses that are in and around downtown. Encourages entrepreneurs to start new businesses outside of this specific project, but also the adjacencies with these investments also have the opportunity to encourage investment in additional real estate development, more housing. So it's kind of hard to quantify that at this point, but I think qualitatively speaking, that's really what this program's all about. But thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the presentation, Jono and Kara. I just had a couple of comments and then wanted to ask, probably more so for Jono, but please feel free to stay up here. So I think if we can go back to the slide of like option A and option B on the affordable housing pieces. So to confirm right now, it's not that there's negotiations with a specific developer. It's really trying to incentivize to see like what is the possibility. Is that correct? I just want to make sure that I'm clear on that.
Yeah, that's an accurate statement.
Okay.
Given where we're at, we want to. This is really an opportunity. This application for transformational brownfield is driven obviously by the soccer stadium and amphitheater. It's a great opportunity to add these private developments to this application and motivate somebody to take these on, right? And so we don't want to set up too many restrictions that would limit the opportunities in the future, knowing that we'll all have an opportunity to look at the details when they become more clear.
Okay. And then the timing, I know Kara had just talked about some of the timing, that obviously we have this meeting, then it'll be coming to City Commission, but we also have to go to the Michigan Strategic Fund. Can you just remind me, did I miss that when you just were talking, Kara?
The timeline for the
Approval process, yeah.
the application, transformational brownfield, the intention is to have a public hearing, so this has to go through the same process as all brownfield plans, public hearing at the City Commission, their consideration. The expectation is that public hearing would be on May 7, and then it would be back in front of the City Commission for consideration on May 21st, and then it would be at the, we're obviously on an ongoing basis and have been and will be working with the state to get this in front of the Michigan Strategic Fund as soon as possible as well.
I know those answers. I just wanted to say them out loud for our board and also for my colleagues on City Commission. I think, again, when we're looking at this project, the amount of investment, we want to make sure we're hitting the appropriate timelines. I wanted to ask you, you don't have to tell me right now, but how much time your team has spent on this? Not to... Mostly to celebrate and to recognize. I think, like you said, this was a good day, and just continuing for us on the board to understand how much time and energy out of our office, but for really great returns. I mean, that's the expectation. So I just wanted to say thank you to your team, and thank you for being here. I also want to say thank you to the mayor. The mayor's here. And so, we've got to hear about this a couple times, but I know, Mayor, that you've been working very diligently on this and pushing the rocks up the hill with the city staff. So thank you for that. And I think understanding, what is this going to look like in future out years? I think we've heard of a lot of people who are excited and interested. We have some people who have reasonable concerns. Last night we just had something around our zoning changes. Things are changing. I keep saying I think a lot of this is just the unknown, but I think in the unknown is a lot of opportunity. I guess, for me on the option A or option B, obviously, we know that more stock, I'm sitting here next to Brooke, is going to be good for us. And the differential, I guess when you're talking about $318 million, $1 million difference is not all that much. But looking at what that contribution could be is good to see. And I know that'll be, again, want to bring this up because I know these will be questions that my colleagues are asking, and just affirming here at this body that this, again, would be transformational. As you said, Mr. Chair, would have a great impact on some other pieces. And then the last thing I want to say is I really appreciate, quite honestly, the realistic point of view on the MLBE conversation that you've had here today, but also in our economic development project team. I think, of course, our goal is how do we have an impact to more local-owned, women-owned, minority-owned businesses. We also know that this is system change work, and one project can't sort of change ongoing things that are existing in our community. So my pitch, I think I said it at the EDPT meeting, if there's some opportunities when, it might not be, the pool may be small in terms of the contractors that we can work with, but some of those subs, and even on your project that you were talking about, Sam, if there's some smaller businesses, if we could get together and talk about what are the potential financing options that are available. It doesn't have to be the organization that I work for in terms of financing, but there is alternative financing that we could be really working with to leverage on some of these projects and be able to braid maybe that next step that business wants to take. Again, I mentioned a good example of that with a business that just received a contract for the construction on Lion Square. So that's my little plug to say, thank you for putting it into the project. Let's be reasonable about it so that it's not us hitting targets and then we're wondering why we didn't do this, but also looking at ways that we could address this system. And I think the capital pieces for some of those smaller firms is certainly important. So thank you. I'll look forward to supporting this project.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Sorry, Jano. I noticed in one of the earlier slides that the space that is estimated, I'm assuming, to be office space versus residential space over by the soccer field, the soccer stadium, excuse me. And I know, or at least I'm getting from this board, that office space is a little harder to move these days than not. I take it these are estimates of what somebody in private business could do?
Absolutely.
And they could change?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
just wanted to thank everybody for their presentations, and I appreciate that we had the opportunity to hear about this project at the previous meeting as well to kind of help prime us for this. I was curious about that MLBE and the women-owned and minority-owned business commitments and the inclusion plans, and how your department, Jono, is intending to report out on that, and what the mechanisms might be that these applicants use to provide information on that. And I speak to that only from lessons learned with some other MLBE commitments and other arenas here at the city, and I know that we've learned a lot on that, and so I'm just curious how that's going to work.
Yeah, and we can, I'm happy to talk about that. It's a city program, obviously, the inclusion plan, and we did report out on that. It's a program that takes a long time to get data, obviously, so we have a commitment today. This project will be built in 2 years, right? And so we'll have feedback along the way, but it takes time. We began implementing the program in 2021. The data that we've reported publicly was from the first 2 years of implementation, where we had 11 applications submitted that we actually had signed contracts, right? So we had an application submitted along with the Brownfield plans, and then the developers and general contractors went and secured all the subcontractors. What we saw from the first 11 projects was that the target was $22 million, and we actually have $20 million of signed contracts. Obviously, we would like that to be higher, but I think that's pretty good. I will say that if we set this program up as a checkbox with a certain requirement, we wouldn't achieve anything. We view it as a partnership. And we're not trying to set anybody up for failure, whether that's a developer, general contractor, or frankly a subcontractor, by giving them a contract that's too big. So we view it as a partnership where we are trying to share the goal of diversifying the construction industry, which is a generational project, as Commissioner Isasi pointed out. And it's only going to work, the city's not going to do that by itself by requiring a certain percentage of participation in every project. We're looking at it as a community effort with developers, general contractors, subcontractors, and the city doing its part to increase demand.
And certainly that you're speaking just from the construction side, and so it might be that long-term there are other MLBEs or WBEs or minority-owned businesses that are contracted long-term for operational services or security services, or other small businesses or other businesses occupying these spaces.
And further, we've seen relationships developed with general contractor and subcontractor that will lead to other projects that we don't know about, whether they're in Grand Rapids or not. And that's a really positive outcome, and I can't show you any data about that, right?
Just a quick comment for Jono, Kara, for the project before this too. I think from my perspective, I'm over here doing math, so it might not be wholly accurate, but what I do know is that the projects that we've talked about this morning and the new tool and our work here today has the potential to enable over 1,000 units of residential, the bulk of which are maintaining levels of affordability. And so I just want to commend all of you for that work. It's obviously critically important, and 1,000 units moving forward, or the potential to enable those here this morning is a really big deal. And so just thank you all for your efforts in preparing for the future and for current residents as well.
Thank you, Director. Any other discussion? All right, we have a motion on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is other business. John, do we have anything else?
Yeah, I just want to introduce a new team member. Douglas Booth has joined us. Doug is the first addition that we've been talking about for some time. And he joins us as a business manager. He's really going to help us operationally catch up with where we are, helping to finish building the plane that we're flying currently. So welcome to Doug. And you want to just wave so people know who you are. And he's on week 2 with us. So happy to have Doug joining the team. Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome. Okay, next item. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll move to adjourn. Have support?
Motion to adjourn. Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
We'll jump right into the Economic Development Corporation meeting. So